So I'll pass you over to Abby, who I'm sure will introduce herself.
Lovely, thank you. Good to see everybody today. I have got one slide to show you, just with some key dates. So I thought that was really crucial. So I'm Abby Forden Barnes. I work for Birmingham City University, and I also chair the Midlands, Yorkshire, North East, East of England Practice Learning Group. We're 34 universities who sit around the table on a monthly basis, and we discuss some of the challenges that we face. We share resources, especially in anything to do with practice education, practice learning. We're a well-established group now, and we were very excited and delighted to receive some funding to help move this clinical expansion agenda forward, really. So I know that there's a number of us, there's 5 of us all in all, who are part of this particular project. What I'll do is I'll share the slides, because I'll go through some of the key work streams that we're involved in over the next few months. Okay, I'm hoping that everybody can see that. Oh, let me go on to slideshow, actually. So you can see my full screen. There you go, that's better. So as you can see, we're a really large practice learning group with a number of institutions involved. We do have our logo. I'm sure many of you are aware of our particular learning our network. And what we're working on at the moment is the Midlands Practice Education Hub project. One particular element that we're really keen on doing when it comes to placement expansion is making sure that we have sufficient practice assessors and supervisors. So I know that in particular that we've been working on a medium to share resources. We're really lucky in the fact that we have so many academics who are experts in relation to practice learning and in relation really heavily involved in the SSSA and are really willing to share the resources. So Jan Royal Firm from the University of Derby has been leading on that particular work stream, and we're hoping that that particular medium will be available for everyone, especially from the private, voluntary and independent sector, also to access that particular medium, where there'll be a large amount of resources in relation to practice assessor preparation, practice supervisor preparation, a number of case studies, and also the actual practice assessment documentation from pre-registration, return to practice, and also the nursing associate. So there is a wide number of resources which are freely accessible for all to access. The other work stream I know that Dom, who's on the call today, is also leading on, and that's on the 6th of May. That's the diversification of practice learning experience to increase placement expansion workshop. And Dom's been leading on this, and he's written a paper on this as well, which I'm happy to share. And I know I've sent this over to Jackie, part of this and the outcome of this particular funding project. And it looks very much about how we can adopt and use non-traditional placement areas within the private, voluntary and independent sector areas, working with the integrated care systems and looking at social care, nursing homes, GPs, and a much more wide, diverse aspect to placement capacity, enhancing occupational health, prison service, and also facilitating social enterprise as well. So that'd be a brilliant workshop for everyone to attend. Dom's really experienced, and it's great to have him on board because he's also previously worked down in the south of England. So he's got a very wide range of experiences across England. Then the other webinar that we're doing is in relation to coaching models. And again, this is all about stepping up leadership, strengthening that leadership model, learning how to be a nurse, and those core principles of coaching. And Tracy Baker at Staffordshire University is going to be leading on that. And looking at the different models out there, Tracy's already written a scoping paper about the different models, such as the CLIP model, which I know a lot of us are already familiar with, about the GROW model. So Tracy at the moment is developing a toolbox, a toolkit for us all to access, so that when you if you're able to join these webinars, we'll have some discussions about those core principles. And then what we're able to help you think about your individual organisation and then how you can adopt those principles and make it work within your placement areas. And I think sometimes it is a bespoke view. Sometimes it's about having those coaching conversations to start off with. But I know that we've got lots of experience around the table to really start people to understand those coaching and how they can adapt it to suit their particular organisation. We've also had many discussions, and I know across Birmingham and Solihull as well, within my particular area at Birmingham City University, in collaboration with the University of Birmingham, University College of Birmingham, we've had discussions about the future nurse standards in relation to Annex A and B, and about how we can overcome some of the challenges. There's already conversations about potentially a perceived proficiency gap, about what is within the nursing midwifery standards for the future nurse in relation to Annex A and B, and then what is actually happening within the existing workforce. So again, it's about having those discussions and having setting out some core principles around that. So it may be that we need to look at how we use simulation, how we co-design this particular work stream, and how we also upskill the existing staff. Also, identification of where those particular nursing procedures happen within your organisation. For example, chest auscultation, venipuncture, cannulation, etc. So it's having those discussions and overcoming those challenges together, really, to come up with solutions. And those are going to be breakfast meetings on these particular dates. So if you're interested on attending, then I'm going to be leading on those conversations, very much in a shared way, collaborative, in partnership to overcome any challenges that we foresee. And then finally, Sophia Hunt over in the University of Lincoln has been doing some amazing work in relation to virtual placements. Sophia's written a review paper, again, which we're happy to share with you, and she's come up with some really interesting ideas to address placement capacity, to reduce the footfall of students entering into the placement area, to increase that digital technology and also supporting some of our shielding and most vulnerable students. Sophia's already looked at some of the key principles that we can start to look at in relation to implementing virtual placements. She's looked at that flexible approach. She's looked at the quality agenda as well and how important it is that we still have an educational audit, but also that we adhere to the SSSA standards. We have peer-to-peer time as well, that students have opportunity to discuss particular elements of care together. It's also about that diversification as well, and a well-structured placement in relation to that virtual placement experience. We have a look at policy and development and make sure that there is structures and infrastructures in place to support that virtual element, and that we have the IT access and also ultimately learning plans for the students so they really understand what that virtual placement experience is about. So I'll stop sharing my screen if I can get my
Abby, just one question that's come up in the chat.
Yes, of course.
How would people go about booking onto these events?
So my email address was on the bottom of the slide. Happy to send that over to Jackie for her to circulate, and I'll put it in the chat as well. So if people just email me and then I'll just send them the calendar invite. It's very, very simple and easy. It'd be great to see all 133 people join us. More the merrier.
One of the beautiful things about working remotely is the fact that we can get so many people. We'd never get that many people in one room together. So it's been one of the. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask Abby? Want to perhaps put your hand up or pop your question in the chat?
Abby, there was a question in the chat from a colleague at NEMS Community Benefit Service, and it was around a centralised register for anybody that's completed the SSSA standards, and does your group have a copy of that? And my thought is no. That my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I understood that was the responsibility of the providers to hold those registers. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Yes, we don't have a central system in relation to collating that information, and I think it's also in relation to sharing personal information. We also have to be particularly careful around that, don't we?
Yeah.
So yes, you're quite right, Jackie.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? I know Dom's on the line. Was there anything you wanted to add, Dom?
Oh, put me on the spot. No, I think, we started this project a few months ago. Really, it was just, I think it probably came back to Mark's point earlier. We were trying to pull together lots of amazing work that everybody's doing all over the place, and trying as much as possible to kind of get a critical mass to share out some of this information, some of the ideas that, particularly have happened during COVID, and share those really. And also a lot of the work we've done really was bringing together information that's already there, that's out there, that lots of you have try and form lots of links in the workshops. So people that have tried collaborative models, for example, or are further ahead with coaching, still come along to the workshops, because it would be great to link people up, to share where people are doing those experiences. And we're hoping that potentially the breakfast meetings might continue as an entity, that we might start them off, but they might actually then kind of grow as something in the region, as a bit of a space, because I think lots of us have very formal spaces, but I think there's less informal spaces where we can just collaborate and share, and that's always difficult because everyone's always stretched for time. But our hope is if we can create a bit of a space, that people can create the time, and then hopefully find that they will get something useful out of it.
Yeah, absolutely, Dom. And I know that I found that our university networks have been really supportive and collaborative, with work in partnership, and it's a great forum to have some sometimes quite challenging discussions, but I think that we're always solution focused and try and come up with them, sharing experiences. And sometimes it's just the little things that you think, oh yes, that'd be brilliant, that would really, really work. So again, I think it is about sort of sharing and looking out for one another. I know Jan had a hand up. I know Jan Royal Fern, I think, is on the call. Jan, was there anything you wanted to bring in from the from your particular work stream? You did have your hand up, didn't you, Jan?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it was just about the SSSA register query that Erin had asked. Just to say that it's difficult when we're creating a regional resource over 34 universities. So sorry, I'm the SSSA workstream lead in the MYNEEBLG. But yeah, it's difficult to create a resource that meets every individual organisation's needs. So I know that those resources were tailored by many organisations, and indeed not all organisations are using them. But each set of the workbooks that we've created during COVID that we're going to look to put online very soon using a MOOC, but each of those had a certificate in the back where people can self-report. We're assuming that all people doing supervisor and assessor preparation are registered professionals, so there's a level of accountability and self-reporting that completion and that preparation for the role. So if you are not sure if individual staff members are part of a PS or PA and they've done the preparation, then that they should have some evidence of that preparation. And for newly qualified students who've done that practice supervisor preparation prior to qualification, they should also be able to evidence that as part of it. This is great. On the screen at the moment for me, I'm showing 4 of our project members, so it's really great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's brilliant. I know Sophia's on the line now, and Sophia's done some brilliant work in relation to virtual placements. Did you have any thoughts, Sophia? Thanks, Jan.
No worries.
Yeah, just to say, Abby, a little bit about the fact that we've kind of we set off with virtual placements, and we've kind of almost expanded that to include other forms of innovative placement experience. And so the work that I did, and obviously have collaborated with other members of this group on, in terms of setting up placements in the vaccination centres, is actually getting requested quite far and wide outside of the original scope of the project. And that kind of having the space with colleagues to discuss these ideas and really kind of cement what it is you're trying to do with other people who understand the picture has then enabled us to kind of share that wider. So been really productive.
Oh, brilliant, thank you.
There are a couple of questions in the chat. One is these events open for AHPs to take part?
Absolutely.
Is the focus specifically about nursing, and if so, are there transferable things that could be used with for other professions?
Yeah, absolutely. I do really think that they are transferable. I think predominantly we are nursing focused, but I think especially when we're looking at some of the core principles that we've developed, Sophia's work in relation to virtual placements, they're definitely transferable. Some of the work that Jan's done in relation to assessing and supervising students, and again, Dom from the diversification, thinking outside the box, and Tracy in relation to the coaching models. So I think they are all transferable across the health and social care sector.
Could the sessions be recorded so that if people can't make those dates, they could catch up on them? We'd be quite happy to host those.
I'm just going to declare, in the diversification of placements, there are models that we're taking from AHP. So, role emerging placements that, have been a staple of occupational therapy programs, for example, for about 15 years. Arm's length models have been very common in AHP programs, occupational therapy, for example, physiotherapy, for a lot longer than, for example, nursing, I would say, and midwifery have forayed into them. So I think there's also something about how within this space we can share models and practice that have happened in the different disciplines and professions as we all come together much more closely than probably we traditionally have in our individual little silos. And also the NMC new standards have allowed us, they're not so new anymore, but they have allowed us to, foray into supervision and assessment kind of realms that we couldn't before because of our professional standards in nursing, midwifery and nursing associates, for example.
Yeah, thanks, Dom. I know Tracy's got a hand up. Tracy's been really key in our particular project as well. I didn't know whether you had any additional thoughts, Tracy.
Yeah, afternoon everybody. I suppose it's just to be the 5 of us together, so that's nice just to have this discussion. I think again, just picking up on your point, is it just nursing, particularly within the coaching webinar. There are some core principles, and again, it would be great if we had our AHP colleagues, because I know you do a lot of work that we can share and learn from. So again, please come along to that, because that would certainly be worth sharing those aspects, because we know there are a number of organisations that are well down the line with some of these approaches, and we also know there's some organisations that would just like to start. So I think that sharing is where we're coming from for sure. So yeah, I think it was just to make that point, really.
Thank you, Tracy. That's great. I don't know if there's any other comments at all, or if there's any other hands up.
Hi, sorry, it's Iram from Nottingham. So I was the one that asked about the SSSA training and the centralised register. Now, I'm actually working at the training hub, which makes it a little bit more difficult for us to get like a good idea of exactly how many nurses have undertaken the training. And obviously, as HE are asking us to do the placements, I guess it would just make life much simpler if there was some form of centralised. And I'm just conscious that obviously different organisations are doing these assessments, so it does make it really difficult. One of the questions, and I'm not sure whether this should go offline, but one of the questions that I had was, when we go on to tell our nurses about the SSSA training, some of them obviously have had their previous mentoring and they can turn, you know, they can do the supervisor and assessor all at once. Now, those that haven't had that and have only done the supervision training, how do they then become assessors? As in, do they have to have a period of time where they've been supervising and then they do an assessment, or what's?
So for people to move from, so we have 3 sort of virtual workbooks that we're using at the moment regionally, but I am aware that organisations also have different responses. So for NEMS, are you working for the NOTS Training Hub, Erin?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. OK. So yeah, I've been talking to your colleague Shelley quite a bit about this. Okay. So we've got 3 sets of resources: transition from mentor to supervisor and assessor, and then practice supervisor prep, and then a separate workbook for practice assessor prep. Okay. The standards for supervision and assessment have got no time requirements whatsoever, which is quite a change from the old mentorship where you had to be qualified for a year prior to doing mentorship. So there's no requirements. There's quite a lot of changes. I mean, if you want to contact me, I'll put my email in the link and we can have a chat.
I've actually taken over from Shelley, so it would be really good to get that info from you. I'll take you up on that email. Thank you.
All right.
Well, thank you very much, Abby, and the team for a really great presentation. It's a pleasure to be working with you and alongside you.